This is the Cancer Boss Method podcast, the place to be when cancer sucks and you don't want it to. I'm Leslie Nance, survivor, cancer coach, and healing mentor. Come learn the truth about what your role is in your own healing. No BS, just real strategies from a cancer coach who has been there, done that. And I'm talking about healing. One of the things that I know firsthand as a woman who had cancer, back in 2012, is that cancer is so dang lonely. Hi guys, this is Leslie Nance. Really excited to be sharing this episode with you. I titled it just that, cancer is so dang lonely. Because, man, I had a great support system. I mean, I had so many people around me that loved me and cared about me and wanted me to do good and wanted me to be healthy and wanted me to take a path that was best for me and was supporting all of my ideas and emotions and everything. But I felt so isolated and so alone. And you might be feeling that as well. So today I want to talk about that loneliness and its mental, emotional, and physical toll that it takes on us. And also just some ways to think about moving out of that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Boss Method. As a certified holistic cancer coach and a certified holistic nutritionist with an emphasis on nutrition for cancer prevention, cancer treatments, really make an inhospitable environment to cancer and to disease, is really part of the equation of that is not just to get into a group of people or women where you feel like you're not the only one, because that's comforting. I mean, let's not discount when you feel like that you're not the only one dealing with something. It's good to know that there are other people out there, but that does not cause a solution. Right? Like that doesn't fix the problem, just knowing that somebody else is miserable like you are. That old saying, misery loves company. Sometimes it makes it worse. If you find somebody who is, you think about as a support person because they've been there, done that, but they're really lonely and miserable about what's happening to them. The two of you together can make really powerful assumptions about, what cancer looks like and how cancer shows up in your life. So we have to be careful and be selective about who we choose as well to let into that journey. So I just want to start with the mental, emotional, physical aspects of this. And let's start with that mentally, right? You're mentally lonely. And what happens is those middle of the night thoughts, right? So for me, it manifested itself in my cancer journey. And by the way, we're just going to dig in today. Like there was no fluff, right? We're just going to go right to the meat of the matter today. So, but that mentality of being, alone in our thoughts. And for me, it manifested in the middle of the night. For like 2 to 3 months, I wasn't sleeping. I would sleep maybe on a good night, I was sleeping an hour. And the rest of the time I was up combing breast cancer blogs, combing just anywhere, looking for anything, for any tiny little bit of hope. And I remember realizing being up in the middle of the night that I was isolating myself, that I wasn't letting anybody into my world. I didn't want people to worry about me. I didn't want my husband to worry about me. In fact, I would sneak, because he's a really hard sleeper, so he didn't even know I was up. So I would sneak out of bed, and at the time, and now too, we live in a 2-story house, but then as well, we lived in a 2-story house, and I could creak down the stairs and get downstairs with my iPad and just research my brains out. And, just looking for a solution, looking for some hope, looking for somebody that had a story similar to mine that I could share my misery with. And what I realized is that I was really alone in my thoughts, and I was not letting anybody in. I wasn't necessary. I was saying I was scared. I was saying I was afraid. I was really miserable about what was happening to me because I thought I was going to die. And, spoiler alert, 10 years later, not dead. obviously. But I would spend all this time and this mentality of trying to fix things and thinking I can do this on my own. I can fix this. I can figure out how to cross these bridges and how to get past this. And so I would stay up every night, because I didn't want to be that frantic mess in front of everybody in the morning, during the day. And so I needed to have my poop together, during the day. So I would just be really alone in our thoughts. And you might be struggling with this as well, especially if you're newly diagnosed. And sometimes even when you've been diagnosed for a long period of time, like if you're dealing with a stage 4 cancer and you've been going through this for a while, and maybe you're way past your journey and you're still going through it. But we get isolated in our thoughts, and some of the most unspeakable things come forward, right? We contemplate our own mortality. We contemplate, preparing for a death. We contemplate, suffering. We contemplate misery. We contemplate, mutilation through surgery. We contemplate side effects of treatments. We contemplate, what is my husband or kids or, family or daughter or sister, whoever's in your life, what are they going to do when I'm gone? Have I told them how much I love them? Have I spent enough time? Have I lived my life wisely? I mean, all of these crazy thoughts start to come forward. And we stay very alone there. And it's a very lonely place that we get to. It's challenging. And so because we want to be a good soldier, because we want to be a good, even to the point of like my clients that work with me, saying that they're a cancer boss. I want to be a good cancer boss. And we isolate ourselves there. And before you know it, we start building up walls. And we also start building up what I call heart armor. We put on this heart armor and it gets really, really, I had a coach, her name was Jessie, and she introduced this term to me and I just loved it because it's such a visual. But because we're so protective of these alone thoughts, right? Alone in our thoughts, we start to feel comfortable there. And then our life feels like a big sham. Like we're putting on for everybody around us, right? Like we're not truly living our life. And this is something that cancer, we feel like it robs us of that. We feel like it robs us of, being able to communicate freely to those that we love what is happening to us. And even if you're communicating it well, because that's not really the point here. Even if you're able to say, this sucks, I don't want this. I mean, like all the things, right? Even if you're able to do that, you still have thoughts that you would never share with anybody because they would be like, are you crazy? Or they would automatically recoil into, no, you're going to be fine. And that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear a solution. So that's one aspect, mentally alone in our thoughts. The second aspect is being alone emotionally. Alone in our trauma and our grief. And you may be saying, oh, well, Leslie, that's the same, right? Alone in my thoughts, thinking about my trauma, thinking about my grief. Nope, it's not the same. Because what happens when we're alone in our trauma and we're alone in our grief, it's no longer about heart armor. It's no longer about, losing opportunities. It's no longer about will I or will I not heal. We start having responses to things. We start responding differently. And this is where I really see women start to recluse, right? Because they feel like they're sitting on a hair trigger. So any moment they could explode. Any moment the trauma could show up. Any moment the grief could be overwhelming. Any moment cancer is going to show up in some way. And so what happens is when you're in this space, you start to isolate emotionally. And you get those emotions really, really numb. You numb them down so much because you don't want to experience the negative emotions. Because a lot of people think, if I just stay positive, oh, I'm positive. That for me, and I think I've shared this before, is the first sign of you're out of control, right? Because you're numbing down the emotional aspects of your diagnosis. It's traumatic. It's okay to think, I got it. I got this. I'm going to live. And be like, holy crap, Shit, I'm in big trouble, right? It's okay to think, I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to find the way past this. I'm going to get through these treatments, and to be really sad about it and to feel grief. But what happens is we numb those emotions. We put them under, we put them down deep. And we don't deal with them because they're hard. And you think that if you do have a negative emotion, that means that somehow that you can't heal, or somehow you're out of control, or somehow that cancer is going to get worse. Let me just tell you that you cannot heal cancer with positivity. You can make things easier if you stay positive. You can create some longevity, but you're not going to get rid of cancer just by staying positive about it. And I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to take a risk here because I'd rather say the truth and piss you off than keep it to myself and not be willing to say it. Right? Because I think some of you are going to need to hear this. I understand, and this is part of this emotional, numbing. I understand that when we get cancer, we get super spiritual really fast. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Okay? I think it's actually one of the blessings of cancer. So that's the first thing I want to say. I think that that's actually one of the blessings of cancer, is that we put our spiritual antenna up and we start praying hard. Even if you've never prayed in your life. I have had women tell me, I have never prayed in my entire life until somebody told me that I have cancer. And then I started learning how to pray. Right? So there's nothing like cancer to get that spiritual antenna super high. Loud and proud. Right? And I know you're praying for solutions. I know that you're praying for healing. I know you believe that God's got you. I know that you have the intentions of that. But let me tell you, Oswald Chambers said it best in his book, My Utmost for His Highest. He said, let us learn to pray, and pray in a way that we cannot, knowing that we cannot change things with prayer. But that when we pray, we change, and we can change things. I gotcha. God's gotcha. I got it. You're praying. I got it. The spiritual antenna is super high. I get that you're tuned in. I get that it's become very important in your life and good for you. When I was a little girl, I'm just going to say one more thing on this and try not to go down a rabbit trail. But when I was a little girl, my mom, some of you have heard this story like 20 times, but anyway, here it is again. So if you're listen a lot, you've heard it before. But when I was a little girl, my mom, I needed to study for a test, and I was like 7. I think I was probably in junior high. And I went to this amazing school. It's called St. Rita's Catholic School. I'm not Catholic. My family's not Catholic, but such an appreciation for the way that I learned there, and actually learned about Catholicism and all the things, right? So it was amazing. And my family was, I have a very strong spiritual background, church 3 days a week. I mean, all the things. I was raised like that. And so I was sitting on my bed. I needed to study for a test. And I will admit, I was not the best student in the world. Most of that has to do with the fact that I'm an extreme dyslexic. And so school was very, very difficult for me until the nuns helped me that were in my Catholic school. And so, but still, just like not really eager about applying myself ever. Like school was boring to me most of the time. So I was sitting, so I needed to study for a test that I had the next day. And I was sitting on my bed, and I piled all my books and my notebooks and everything in a pile in front of me. And apparently I was sitting in the middle of my bed with my legs crossed and my hands on my books, and I was praying. And I was praying to pass the test, right? So my mom comes in, she stands at the door, lets me finish praying, and she says, she still calls me Piddle Paddle. And she says, Piddle Paddle, what were you just doing? And I said, oh, Mom, I was praying that I pass my test tomorrow. And she was like, oh, that's amazing. That's a good thing to do, right? To pray that, that you study hard, and that that you absorb the information, and that you're able to, put it back out in the test tomorrow. And you're not nervous. Those are good things to pray for. Good for you. And she said, but how much have you actually studied? Well, guess what? I was just trying to pray my way into passing the test. Now, you know, and I know that that's not effective. But we do the same thing when we get cancer, right? And this is part of this loneliness that we feel. This is part of that trauma reaction, that grief reaction that we get. I'm staying positive. I'm praying. God's got me. And so we just pray and we hope that things change, instead of praying that we change and then things might change. But being alone, that's all I'm going to say about that. I could do a whole episode on just that. But being alone in our own trauma and grief, shutting down, reclusing, because eventually what's going to happen, if you're there right now, if this is you, if I'm talking to you and you're like, oh my God, like, how does she know this, right? Because I've walked a million miles in your shoes, but how does she know this? How does she know that I'm dealing with this? If this is you right now, okay, and you're struggling with this, the next steps of that are you're going to start reclusing around people because you're afraid that your trauma is going to show up. You're going to afraid that they're going to catch on to you. You're afraid that they're going to be like, oh, well, she's not as strong as I thought. So basically your ego is standing in the way, and you're going to recluse more and more and more and more. And that's going to make healing very difficult for you because you cannot heal alone. You might want to write that down. You can't heal alone. You need a support structure. So reclusing is not effective. And then what happens from there is a slippery slope down to, gosh, I've lost all my friends. I don't go out. I don't do anything anymore. I'm so recluse. I mean, cancer really sucks. This is awful. You know, I'm probably dying. Nobody wants to be with me. Nobody wants to hang out with me, which is also a trauma response, right? I don't want to be a downer. Trauma and grief response, by the way, that emotional response of being lonely. And so we start in that belief system, we start in that belief structure. And then what happens next is really dangerous, because then you start thinking, man, if this is how my life is going to be, I'm not very interested in that. And guess what happens after that? Hopelessness, downward spirals. We really settle into like, this is it. The next aspect of being lonely is physical. I like to think about this, you know, from the perspective of like everyone's life around you is going forward and you're frozen in time. You're just frozen at the day that you heard you had cancer, and everything changed in that 1 second. You walked in maybe a healthy, happy person, and or maybe not, because you probably had a biopsy and you knew like you were going to hear an answer, yes or no, that you have cancer, but you walked in a healthy person and you walked out a sick cancer patient. And you're frozen in time in that moment. And the other analogy that I like to use is that it's like being on an island. You're on an island that's close to the mainland, and, you know, everybody's on the mainland and you can see their lives and they're just going about their life. They're doing what they always do. They're going to work, you know, they're meeting with friends, they're hanging out with family, you know, and they don't have a million doctor's appointments, and they don't have to sit in a chemo suite, and they're not, you know, thinking about surgery, and they're not contemplating their, you know, their mortality. They don't have to do that. They don't have to worry about what they look like without their hair. They don't have to worry about what they're going to look like with one boob. They don't worry about, you know, their sex life and not having, you know, any reproductive organs anymore. They don't worry about having to breathe, you know, because they have lung cancer. They're just going forward. They're just going about their lives. And this is even people that are close to us. So you're out on this island, and they'll come over and they'll visit with you, or they'll wave as they go by, or they'll yell over, how you doing? How are things going? But then as soon as that's over, they get to go right back to their life. And so physically, you're out on this island and you can't find any real way to figure out how to be a part of their lives anymore. So it creates this physical loneliness. And this also leads to reclusing. You're kind of sick of seeing their happy lives. We start talking to friends that are super positive and, have great things to say, or people stop telling us their positive experiences because you have cancer and they don't want to bum you out that their life is going so well and you have cancer. So we actually end up with this physical loneliness. You might be experiencing that through, sex with your partner. There's a loneliness. My husband treated me like I was really fragile for about a year. And I was like, I'm fine. Just don't touch my left boob. Just leave her alone. You can look at her, but you can't touch, right? Righty is all there, ready to go. I know, total TMI. But what is a podcast without TMI is what I want to know. Righty's ready to go. Lefty, she's out of the game for a while, right? But there's this physical loneliness, and it can come in many different ways. Maybe friends stop coming by. Maybe you're getting like it's been a while since you've been diagnosed, and people have stopped bringing food. They've stopped sending cards. They've stopped, calling you to see how you're doing. You start to feel lonely. Maybe you're past your treatments and you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to go to the infusion, I almost said studio, the infusion suites, every week or every other week or every 3 weeks. You don't have to see a doctor every week. And you kind of feel physically abandoned. Like, now what? Cancer is a series of this. This is why cancer is so dang lonely. We feel like that, again, and you'll hear me say that, it's just a series of losses. Even if you're really good at this cancer thing, even if you do feel like you have all your ducks in a row, I bet I hit a hot point with you today. I bet when you're listening to this, you're like, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I do that. So what's the solution? How do we get to a point where we are not feeling so lonely? First of all, let me talk about the fact that, before I get to that, let me talk about the fact that a healing environment, an inhospitable environment to cancer is not alone. You're not doing it alone. Now, most of us have a team of doctors. Most of us have a support staff for those team of doctors, and that's great, right? We have those medical professionals, but most women complain to me that they're not like there all the time. And if you have a question, it's just logistics and they're going to answer that question and then but there's no like patting you on the back. And if they do, it's very brief. It's not like some long-term commitment to you not being lonely. So how do we figure out how to get into that healing mindset? How do we get into that healing space where we're not alone? The first thing I want to point out is having unbiased support person. Okay? I would like for you to think about this person as somebody who doesn't know your people. Okay? And I mean like your immediate people, whoever those people are in your life, right? So kids, husband, wife, whatever, okay? Whatever your immediate people are. Most of us have like immediate people. But have an unbiased support person that doesn't know those people. This is important because the reason for that is that if you were my best friend and I knew your husband and I knew you and I'd known you for 20 years and all the things, and you came to me and you said, look, cancer is a total shitstorm. I'm so alone. I really need some help, and you started unloading on me and I felt like that you were in trouble, I would probably speak to one of your immediate people because I would be worried about you. Or I'd speak to one of my immediate people because I would be worried about you, because I love you, because I want you to be okay. And sometimes that's debilitating. Sometimes you don't want those immediate people to know what's going on. You're trying to protect them. You don't want them to know your thoughts in the middle of the night. You don't want them to know what you dread. You don't want them to know what you fear. You don't want them to know the unspeakable. You don't want them to know the trauma that you're dealing with, the grief that is happening. You don't want them to know that you're resentful that they get to go on with their lives, and you don't. So somebody who doesn't know your people. Now, who are those people? Like, who is that possibly? Like, it's somebody I don't know. Like, I'm going to go to a complete stranger and lay this on the line. So you know what I'm going to say next, right? A cancer coach fills this role. And I have to tell you, I'm not saying that because I'm a cancer coach. I'm telling you that any kind of cancer coach, any type of support person that understands, that listens, that guides, is a good support person. It might be your nurse navigator. It might be a counselor. It might be, who knows? It might be a woman that you met in the chemo suite. It might be somebody that you met in the radiation room. But finding somebody that is an unbiased support person who doesn't know your people, your immediate people anyway. It is gold. That person is going to be able to hear you, is going to be able to love you, and they're not even going to consider the repercussions of anything that they tell you or help you with or share with you or just an ear to listen to. It's not going to go past that person because they don't know your people. It's very different. When my clients come to work with me, they're like, my favorite aspect is how available you are. I don't need you every single day, but it's so awesome to know that if I do, you're there. You release stress at that point. You have an unbiased support person because my promise to you is I don't care what's going on with your family. I don't care what's happening to your husband and to your kids. If it affects you, then I care. But I only care about you and the outcome that I've promised you. So, unbiased support person. The second thing is a community of women like you that will love and support you. I'm not talking about a support group. No offense to the support groups of the world. Some people really, that's their jam. But as soon as I say that we have community sessions to someone, they're like, oh, it's a support group. No. Oh my God, no. No. You need a group of women that have the same goals that you have. Which I'm guessing if you've contacted me or you listen to me, it's healing. That's what you're focused on. So having a community of women that are like you, that have either had cancer or have cancer, going through treatments, been through treatments, so that you don't feel alone. Imagine having a woman or women in your life that you can say, okay, so here's the dealio. I was up last night and I am super worried about how my husband is going to look at me once I am missing a breast and I don't have any hair. I mean, what in the world? There is not going to be anything attractive about that. And that group of women to go, oh man, we totally hear you. And some of them to say, you know what? I have been there, done that. And here's what happened. And here's what I did. And here's some suggestions. And by the way, here's some love because we get it. That sucks. That emotion sucks. Or how about going, I had a woman in my community a few months ago, and she had to tell her 8-year-old that she had stage 4 cancer. And she was like, she brought it to the group and she said, you know what? I don't even know how to do this. And she can't go to her people because none of them have had to do this, right? So she comes to the community of women, the Cancer Boss community, and she says, I have to tell my 8, what do I do? And oh my gosh, the love and the suggestions and the ideas and the brainstorming and the plan that we came up with. She came back the next week and she was like, you're going to just be totally amazed, everyone, at how well that went and how confident I felt speaking to him about what is happening to me. Imagine having a community of women. It's important. Whether you get it with me, whether you get it somewhere else, whether you get it in the Cancer Boss Method program, whether you get it wherever, having a community of women like you that will love you and support you and have the same objectives that you do. Now, if you're a big old whiny pants and you're bitching and moaning about what's happening to you, then you need to find a group of women like that. And I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. But if you're focused on healing, if you're focused in that energy, then you need to find a community of women that are also focusing their lens there so that they know how to support you. By the way, the Cancer Boss Method provides you with that community in spades, and it's amazing. I'm a cancer survivor. I thrive in it. I'm the facilitator. I'm the coach. I'm like the head honcho in there, but I thrive in it because I also have needs as a survivor. It's amazing. The last thing I want to touch on is having professional guidance from a transformative, loving environment. Not one that keeps you stuck. Not one that makes you worry about every morsel of food that you put in your mouth. Not one that tells you that you're going to die if you do chemo. Not one that tells you that you're doing it wrong. Not one that tells you that, you're totally whacked and what are you thinking? Not one that commiserates with you either. But professional guidance that moves you in a direction. You are more likely to heal when you feel like you're on a path for that healing. And you're not just popcorning around to like all the different things, all the different diets, all the different treatments, all the different alternatives, all the things. Pop, 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 pop. I love popcorn. It's delicious, but it's not the lifestyle we need for healing. We need to have more certainty. We need to have more clarity. If you want cancer to be transformative in your life, if you want it to be something that springboards you into total health, that changes your life forever in a way that you could have never imagined and you actually feel grateful for it, helping people, loving people, maybe working with people who have cancer, then you will heed what I'm talking about. Unbiased support person, community like you that will love you and support you, and professional guidance in a loving, transformative environment. I'm just going to say it one more time for the record. The Cancer Boss Method is all of these things. It's a totally unique approach. There is no one else out there doing what I do. I have built it out of my own journey. I have built it out of my desire and my passion for taking women on this transformational journey, by helping women heal, by teaching them what I know, what took me years to learn, by introducing them to a community of women that will blow your mind every single time you walk in the door. Not in the door, it's the Zoom door, by the way. It's a virtual door. By being that unbiased support person that you can always come to no matter what shitstorm is going on in your life. All of those things take you to a pinpoint of clarity, and you start to understand what healing looks like for you, and you unblock those healing pathways. And you don't feel pushed and shoved and confused and berated and belittled and anxious. And most of all, you don't feel lonely. All right. Thank you for listening today. I'll try to get some more episodes up. I know I'm a little late with this one. Hello, holiday, like all the things. It's just the Memorial Day holiday. So if this is you, you need to reach out. Please follow the link below this episode. There will be an opportunity there to make an appointment with me. I am excited to talk to you. It's absolutely free for that appointment. We're going to figure out if it's a good fit for you. If it is, we'll talk about that in detail. If it's not, I'll point you in a direction to get the help that I think that you need. But either way, you're going to be loved, you're going to be supported, you're going to be heard, and you're going to be guided. And that call is absolutely free. All right, thanks for listening today. Have an amazing day. Oh, and don't forget, cancer is not your destiny. If you have enjoyed this episode, it's time to connect. Make sure you follow this podcast and check out all the socials on anystagecancer.com. If you're ready to talk about your own healing using the Cancer Boss method, then click the link below this episode. Hey, and remember, cancer's not your destiny. Okay, I'm outie.